Welcome. This is the December 17th Jail and Zones production user call. We have Dave, Mark, Igor, Jan, Carlos, and myself, Michael. And Igor, it sounds like you've got some perhaps CI updates, or was it, hold on, jail metadata updates?
Yeah, it's about jail metadata work. I guess we are kind of on the final stage of discussions about this, and recently it's mostly talks about limit or not to limit as a character set, which is allowed to be used for these buffers, meta and env. And the latest patch has this renaming. So external buffer, how we called it previously, now is just meta, and internal is just env. So env is for configuration of the jail itself, so it can read it through a special sysctl. And meta is hidden from the jail itself, so it's for parent jails, for administrators to tag jails like customer one, role two, and so on. And also, right now I'm working on an extra patch. It seems to be not a lot of extra code to add to the kernel side to provide this key value parsing thing, as everyone was discussing before, uh, to make it usable, not like a blob of text, but we could ask GLS to extract meta.key1, for example, or env.key2. And the same way we can use jail8 to modify or set only a specific key instead of the whole blob of text. So I plan to publish it on the Fabricator as the next update as soon as possible, and we will see how it goes because of there is a feeling that everybody would like to have this a little bit better user experience from day one. So this is what I'm trying to achieve. And also it covers Jan's comments regarding single writer. So the kernel is going to be our arbiter. So we can do in parallel these updates and they will happen in sequence, not like clashing between each other.
Has Jamie been
So
active on those reviews?
The kernel is not the arbiter in that place unless you implement some special setter which splits the old and new values so that you get atomic compare and swap. Because normally, if you just use a sysctl as usual, the write each individual update operation is atomic, but the sequence of updates is not ordered. So basically, whenever the lock is released on the sysctl, some other process can read it or write it, but you cannot do an atomic read, modify, write in user space on
yeah,
a
correct.
single string sysctl, as far as I know.
Yeah, but here we are talking about not sysctl. So sysctl is not going to be used for modification. So we are talking about the syscall, which is used
Oh,
through libjail by jail8 and jls8, or other users like Flua, for example. So we are talking about the syscall itself. So it's behind the syscall inside the kernel. So
so
it
you're
has a user
proposing to extend the
login
jail
mechanism.
set system call?
No, 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 no. It's just extension of the logic behind this newly added OSD to the jail structure.
Ah,
So jail structure already can have something attached for ZFS, and now we are attaching something for meta and env. It's like a new couple of OSDs called meta and env, and when we parse the parameters on the kernel side, when we iterate through them, so it's already past this jail or JLS side, so we have already parameters on the kernel side. This is where we have a log, so we have time to manage our parameters, and
mhm.
all requests are going to be sequential because of the very simple usual locking mechanism. So this is what I have in mind. Yeah.
Jamie, welcome. Have
Thank
you
you.
been following Igor's work on the jail metadata?
Yes.
Any observations, comments?
Hold on.
No worries. Ooh, people are rolling in. Can't keep up.
People who want to get out of prison.
That's fine for people. I would object if my processes managed to do it.
Oh, Raytonian, remind me of your other name. Maybe it's in the last one. Okay. I heard, hold on. But other updates, Igor. Sounds like you are moving right along.
Yeah, I guess this is it. So I plan to update the review on the fabricator when I have this additional code implemented, so we can read and write on key basis. Not we still can write and read the whole buffer, the whole blob, but we also will be able to read and write per key.
Oh, so you want to provide a unified view of all the key value pairs for a single sysctl or what?
Existing programs like jail8 and GLS8 can read and modify it respectively. So it's not provided as a set of sysctls because of it's quite dynamic, and sysctl design could be extended for that, but it's extra work and extra debates for that. So maybe it's not for that. So we can start with the tools around jails to do extra work around jails. So it's just extension in the kernel, and the only change for now I need is relatively small on libjail side to make it like to make it pass this parameter request, because of these parameters are like not announced through the sysctl security jail param. So if they are not announced there, they are treated as like unknown parameters. So it will report back earlier that it's unknown parameters. So I need some extra code, a little code on libjail side to pass such parameters like meta.k1, because of it doesn't exist as a sysctl. We have only meta on the sysctl side. And I have an idea to use formatting suffix like capital A for string, maybe comma, key value, like flagging that it's for key value mechanism as an idea.
You're right, that because that was something I already worried about. Right now, the jail command and like use the sysctl types to infer which type of parameters exist and even which parameters exist. So it's kind of so that you can use a old jail command on a newer kernel and still use new parameters, because it will just look at the sysctls as presented by the kernel to know which parameters exist. I wonder if it would be possible to fake the existence of a sysctl by implementing a custom node type, so that it basically returns for any allowed key name that the type is a string, as if there is such a sysctl. So that it would just, whenever the jail command asks what's the type of meta.foo, it would get string back.
You actually change the syscontrol code to do that, or the jail
That's
code?
a question if you can already do that through the right callback, or if the node actually has to exist in the OID tree for that to be possible. Or if you can have the parent notice that so that you have the jail.meta implemented in such a way that I think you can have one level of kind of dynamic stuff under you. And if you can, that could just be implemented that it would present it as a string typed sysctl with no value or empty value.
The only dynamic things I can think of in syscontrols are things like processes, where it is dynamic, but it is a global view dynamic. No matter who looks at the processes, they see the processes. Here, you want to look at one jail, and there's not really a way to say syscontrol. What is the parameter for this if I'm looking at a jail?
No, but you have that place in the sysctl tree where the jail command finds the types of the parameters, if it's an integer or a Boolean. Okay, it's treated as an integer or a string.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that key can implement a new key meta, which says all my children exist and are strings. If they are
Let him finish.
of this namespace allowed for meta keys. So let's say alphanumeric and underscore.
I'm thinking no. I haven't actually looked at the code, but I'm thinking that there isn't something there for that. I like the idea of putting it as one of the flags on the syscontrol type for meta itself, much like the array flag is already added to other types. Something just that, jail code can understand.
Yeah, this is what I'm working on. Yeah, this is what I'm working on right now. Let me post it in the chat. So currently in the code work in progress, I use it like this, for example. So this is the format type of meta and env parameters. So it says to leave jail that be nice and be okay if you see a request for meta.anything or env.anything. So it's okay, just pass it to the kernel. It knows what to do. Something like that.
Yeah, I think that's how to do.
Other questions, ideas, concerns, and I'm sure there will be future add-ons, but let's hopefully get some plumbing in place for a good, initial MVP, minimal viable product to get this going and just not paint ourselves into any corners. So, Jan, I hope your concerns are broadly addressed by this first rev of it. And Jamie, your concerns are absolutely important to us.
Yeah, my main concerns are the key value, and with that going in here, that's what makes me happy.
Okay, other ideas, questions, concerns regarding the jail metadata? That sounds very, very cool and useful.
So I just want to circle back to where we originally started off, just for some sort of
context is always good. Yes, John.
Yeah. So the original goal of this was this sort of use case. I have a bunch of jails which I'm administering on behalf of some other service or process or team. So in my case, it's CI stuff. And I have some sort of load balancer in front that goes, I need to make sure we have at least one jail of type www and 3 of backend, or you can make up your own rules for that. And it doesn't really care what is inside the jails, and it in the larger picture, it doesn't even care which machine it's on. So it just needs to query them and say, give me a list of jails that match this criterion. So for the metadata side of things, I will need to pick a key to use that to contain sort of the things I need in it, which works fine for me. In the wider picture, I would also like to ask the other people who've written jail managers if we can mutually agree on a standard key that we would use for this, and then people can use whatever jail tool they like, from fancy Podman through to plain humble jail, and fetch out that tag metadata to then pass to the load balancer or to the other tool that says, I have enough jails and I'm distributing the traffic across across all of those things. So it's fine for me. It's a good place to be.
I trust all the original objectives have been met.
Yeah. Otherwise,
Right.
I'd be complaining bitterly, and Eagle would be throwing things at me. Or maybe it would be
Fantastic.
the other way around. I don't know.
Okay, looking at the chat. User example. Cool. Okay. Well then let's move on if
Oh,
that
yeah. So just answering Jan's question there. So things
please.
like CNI, CSI providers would put metadata inside the jail. They have their own mechanism for doing this because I don't know how it's implemented on Linux, but they have the same sort of problem there as well. And I think they have either a SQLite database or just flat files for some of these pieces.
Well, great work, Igor. Jump in again if
Yeah,
anything
thank you
comes
very much.
up. And thank you, Skunkworks, for sponsoring that. Dan L, do you have any topics?
Well, I just
Corny.
fired up a new jail which contains some backend code for fresh ports. So I'm looking for people to convert it from Subversion to Git. But I already posted that on social media. I'll
Cool.
find you a link.
Cool. Jamie, welcome. I'd be curious what you are tracking. I recall
Mostly,
jail descriptors being a hot topic. Go ahead.
yeah, I haven't done work of my own lately. Mostly, I've just been keeping an eye on the meta thing. That's what brought me here.
Awesome. And so far it has your seal of approval.
Yeah. Well, as I just mentioned in a thing today, I don't know about the whole character set checking thing, but other than that, that's a small issue.
The character set tracking through a bit set of 256 bits, one for each possible byte value, was compromised because Dave wanted, at least at the time, the value set to be restricted, and I bitterly argued against putting such policies into the kernel, crippling the mechanism, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Because in my opinion, this is not something the kernel should prevent. The kernel shouldn't inspect the data; it should just pass it around and keep a hold of it, but not inspect it in any way. Because I wouldn't expect it to catch an SQL injection or shell command injection vulnerability in the value either. So why worry about anything you can handle? So basically, the only really problematic value is a null byte. And anything else should go, in my opinion, up to some limit of, but just a size limit. And so I propose to use a bit set to implement both because it wouldn't be much code, very fast to implement, and I could then just set it to the bit set containing only the null byte, and he could set it to the bit set allowing only alphanumerics and spaces and tabs or whatever. And I could do my crazy things, and he could have a safe mechanism. But when we have multiple producers, this becomes even more complex, so and even less useful, in my opinion, to have this subset. Because when we have a key value namespace, then yeah, the values belong to whoever placed them there, and there is no single producer.
Okay, points taken, I trust. So I would love to talk bug busting, especially while we have Mark and Dave, and I see syscontrol.d. I'll throw that in there. Any other topics before we jump into any of that? Alrighty, well, I'll just get it out there and get it off my chest. I was up late last night running through at least a dozen tickets that were closable in some way, and I've made some observations about the challenges of bug busting within the FreeBSD context. Ironically, I didn't look at jail until this morning, but that's okay. Maybe we can do that together. I trust most of the folks here have either filed an issue over the years or followed them or participated in some way. So I absolutely welcome your feedback. I will very quickly run through something I blasted out on the Fediverse of what I observed. It is great to find a ticket that says, hey, this is fixed, thanks everyone. And you can just proudly say, well, it's fixed. But I'm guessing 1 to 3% of the tickets out there are of that nature. So they're just kind of just noise, baggage, etc. But hey, at least they're fixed. Mark earlier made a point about subject matter experts. I know at least 1 or 2 things about ZFS. And for example, I've seen a lot of issues in the wild when there's some like import or resolver issue from, in one case, FreeBSD 8 pre-release. All of the majority of the code related to that has changed, and maybe bugs have come and gone. I think that those are no longer pretty active issues, although there's always something unique that people do, and I'll get to that in a sec. I experimented with just reaching out to people saying, hey, are these issues still open? And some were very quick, some are silent, some have bounces. So some of that maybe can be automated. Let's get to CVEs in a second, Screw it. So I would love to know what y'all think of this, especially, say, Mark and company. So here is, people tend to track CVEs. Note that FreeBSD might be impacted typically through a port, and then they say, hey, FreeBSD has a bug. So we get things like update from this to this, which fixes a CVE. I generally do a quick look at fresh ports, which is easy to find insofar as we have the category and the port name. So I just do freshports.org, slam this in, and just see
So
what the
right
version
here,
is. So
I'm running something called a test port.
yes.
And what it does is it builds this port.
Okay.
And then once I'm into the shell that creates, where it's built and installed that port, I say, show me any information you have about ports that had Bacula in the name. And so it installed Bacula 15 client, and it has Bacula, it has this one. So this is what you want to install, and it'll install that.
I have to do.
Oh, Dan, is that to us or to your colleagues?
Yeah. What's highlighted there now. Yeah.
That is fascinatingly ambiguous. Dan, I'm going to mute you, unmute if you need to. I think that was to a colleague. I could be wrong. So I noticed these words marked as spam quite a bit. Mark L, do you have any comments on the history of these, or had you seen those? And Mark, you're muted. Let's see. We've got Jamie and Dave to work with who are not muted. What have you seen?
I have a huge list of bookmarks of bugs that I should look at, I suppose. It's amazing how the I should look at, I suppose, lists can grow.
Oh, and they grow on their own. Yeah.
In relation to CVEs, yeah, it's I don't generally see things with CVEs at all.
We did have some escapes, I think we're all kind of tracking, but
Yes.
things like this, people I are just kind of like, oh, there might even be a tiny bit of malice here of like, let's just sort of flood FreeBSD with some hypothetical CVEs, some of which were ancient. So there's that. And I dug it up and couldn't find a single mention of the CVE within the context of the project in its reporting. So here we are.
Okay.
So I personally wouldn't yet close this just thinking, hey, that's not a thing. But I did notice that, hey, the version in FreshPorts is not that current version. This was pretty recent from September. So there's an example. With a more, which one did I give? The 5.5. At another extreme on these CVE spam ones, if you want to call it that, which may not be accurate. And naturally, I've never heard of any of these components, but it's recent. And I did some homework, and okay, they've gone with like NIST references. Great, great, great. And I believe this one's still open. Yes. So I didn't do anything, but in practice, I just generally do a quick view of fresh ports and see if what version it's on, and then just verify that the responsible party is at least the maintainer, which is often like a desktop at FreeBSD. So there's that. Moving on, in a previous call last week, we discussed some of the guidance we can provide people. And I think the ticketing system may sure benefit from just having a click through. Please read this. Here are some good tips on making a good report, because, hey, I think that may cut down on the ingest of superfluous reports, assuming there are some superfluous ones. Some people manually ping people annually. It's like, oh, here's your annual ping on this ticket. Still a thing. I found it, again, effective to just reach out to people, and some immediately responded like, hey, oh yeah, that's fixed, which is a thing you want to hear. And then, as I think I touched on briefly last week, there are some very weird scenarios, such as, oh, gee, we're using Beehive nested under KVM with a React OS guest. And I don't think that's your typical first guarantee from the FreeBSD project, but it is fascinating, such that when those tickets arise, they are, maybe the wording can be better, they're outside of a guarantee. However, maybe they should be added to some kind of list of things to test in a testing framework, because as we aggregate those, I think we'll reveal some interesting behavior that happened to be triggered by that one nesting of React OS under Beehive under KVM. So that, and if it's not obvious, all of this applies from sort of the trifecta perspective of jails, OpenZFS, and Beehive, where I and you have spent a non-trivial amount of your time. There's naturally the pfSense OpenSense appliance question. There are like, oh no, VM Beehive, which yes is a port within the FreeBSD port system, is not doing something like, gee, it makes a hard drive look like a CD and it doesn't boot. Well, that's a VM Beehive issue because FreeBSD is doing the right thing under the hood. Maybe there's a polite way to say, hey, take it to their ticketing system. And in some cases, I looked up that same issue and just gave a report within the, say, GitHub ecosystem for that project and dropped it in there. And then to the point, what do we do with tickets that are, say, older than my two youngest children, who are 7 and 11, such as, yes, my sort was preserved. I'll zoom out just a touch. 2015, 3 tickets, 2017, more than 3, 2018 onward. I've heard comments like, hey, let's just blanket close them because they're old. Well, no, there's some fascinating stuff there. And so let's just say, hey, gang, what do you think would be yet another baby step towards bug tracking and busting nirvana?
Yeah, pay subject matter expert to reproduce all the issues on the original version to confirm the reported issue, and then on the oldest still supported release again, and then on current, and find out if it's overcome by events and has been fixed since, or fix it. But realistically speaking, that's not feasible. But please don't just bug close old issues, because then nobody will ever fix them.
Exactly. It's a fine line. And if they're doing
And
something clever,
also
bizarre,
muddies
intriguing, I'm intrigued.
it would also muddy the water, because when you look at things, you would think that if you really close them as fixed or just closed, you wouldn't know that they are just officially abandoned and now, or discarded, or whatever you want to call that label, which would be more appropriate. But if you just close them, it looks as if the issue has been fixed and not never fixed.
So I didn't close anything if there's any doubt whatsoever, but hey, it's been educational for me. I suppose as users, have you been frustrated by someone slamming a door on you, saying, "Hey, you don't care," and oh, could someone please explain overcome by events? Because that's just, I don't think even the general public or non-English speakers will do much with that.
I think overcome by events really means abandoned.
A light way of saying abandoned.
Like it could be something like, oh, I have a bug in this driver, but the driver has been removed from all still supported FreeBSD versions because it was on EISA SCSI card or something. Or it could be, we didn't follow your design, but it has been fixed.
Yeah.
What was that, Dave?
I think it's totally unclear. Open source projects in general have a philosophical problem between two groups of people: those who believe every bug should remain open until somebody who does the work to deal with it, and the group of people who goes, if no one is working on it, then I don't want it in my face and I would like to get rid of it. These are just two fundamentally different philosophies. There's very little common ground, and my response to people who think they should remain open is, that's great. You can do the work. It's very, very hard to keep track of bugs, and the more users we have, the more bugs we get. So paradoxically, a large backlog is maybe also is not a sign of an unhealthy project. It's a sign of a used project. Yeah.
But the ratio, which is the health indicator, in my opinion.
Maybe this is based on an assumption, which is not necessarily correct, that there's a lot of people going back through and combing and getting rid of these bugs on a regular basis and testing them, and most bugs do not get that level of consideration.
So I do see wetware issues simply, hey, let's just reach here. Yeah. You take these 6 people, reach out to them and ask and wait maximum a week. You reach out to these 6, and some people responded immediately like, oh yeah, that's fixed, which is great. So it's not always these are bugs that are needing developer attention from Mark Johnson. Go ahead, Jan and company, maybe.
It's fine to mark issues as something like inactive. I just really, it pisses me off as a user whenever I encounter that, and it's just disingenuous to pretend the issue is closed because you've been ignored as a reporter. So, yes, there are low quality reports. There are automated, almost spam reports where someone just, for example, forwards CVEs they find for projects they're not related with to people who they think should know about this or something. Basically attacked by a Perl script. But if you assume that the majority of the reports is a user doing their best to report the issue, spending time, and then you get just told, yeah, sorry, nobody bothered to read what you did, and now we are deleting it effectively.
My gift to you, I'm glad you mentioned that.
Not just ignored, but ridiculed and ignored effect.
Yeah, well I guess the point I want to make is there is no solution for this problem. There are more bug reports than people look at them, and there are more valid bug reports than there are people to fix the issues.
Yes.
And that will never go away. And the AI stuff
it's like, it doesn't take AI to be annoying.
It doesn't. Oh, wait, new T-shirt. So yeah, all valid.
What
points.
I do to limit this issue is that I sometimes search on the Bugzilla and then sort both by latest and oldest modification and look at them one at a time and basically burn the candle from both ends. Or just pick one at random from the middle.
That's where I think this is helpful. If there are only 3 tickets from 2015, it's worth the few minutes to
totally
see if they're valid. And again, some people immediately responded, and that's a pure wetware issue, not an engineering issue. So, could Bugzilla do a better job of periodically mailing people and saying, hey, ping, is this still valid? And if it observant a bounce and then note it as exactly that. This bounced on this date. Yo, human, think about if something should be done. That's all. Let's see, did that do something?
And the
New
ancient
NFS
one, for
server.
example, just slipped through the cracks because the oldest 2015 jail report, the user figured it out themselves within a few hours that it wasn't a jail issue, but it was a misconfiguration of their then up-to-date Samba version, where the Samba name service switch plugin has to be configured correctly and has to be added to NSS switch. And yeah. So.
And wow, it sounds like June OS. It sounds like it's at Juniper. It's new NFS, whatever that means, and it's on FreeBSD 9. Okay. And I don't mean slam that close button, but I, do slam with a polite explanation on each point just to show that some human effort's been given to it. Plus, hey, reopen this if it's still an issue, but let's for now close that. And this is just my gut instinct. Maybe I'm doing it completely wrong. Mark, you may have some input on that, but I am patiently waiting to see what blowback there is. A search contain the strings. Does this search the body or just the headlines such that you could do something like fixed? Because it's kind of like on forums. If you search for solved, you might save yourself a bunch of time. Fixed port. So yeah, that's seems to be titles there, but
All the string valued fields, I assume, because there are things like bug IDs, which are hopefully not string valued.
So if I could exclude the titles, maybe we just find fixed in the body of it, just hypothetically.
I don't know if you can search in the actual comment text.
Well, let's see.
Never tried that.
This was marked as broken. Added patch, thanks. Either way, thanks for unbreaking this port. So open, closed. Oh, it searched closed ones. So okay, need to exclude those. So yay, we found a validly.
These been imported from NATs, have they?
Ooh, good question.
I'm just looking at that going 1998.
96. Goodness. 94. Yes, I had just graduated college. So yeah. Summary fix. So no, maybe we can exclude the status. Where's the status? Status. All open. I like the sound of that.
Summary only searches the summary. Okay.
Okay.
You can also open the detailed bug information and then search in the comments.
Okay. So yeah, and this is where this is not an engineering topic. If the community can just broadly spend that hour a week, and wow, Mark, I found it kind of sort of zen mesmerizing to hunt, looking for that. Oh, it's fixed. Oh, I can say, hey, yay, go team. This wasn't closed. Oh. Bridge behavior. Good stuff. Thank you. Mac level bridge. Okay, so, and then this could use some networking expertise. So anyway, one, I'll say any and all help is appreciated on just that wetware handling. It's totally interesting to jump into, say, jail, open ZFS, and Beehive topics because the scope is generally narrow. The hardest of those, I'd say, is jail because it goes back to 2000 and there could be tickets imported from NATs from our ancestors, et cetera, et cetera. Jamie, as a maintainer, are there any wish list items you would prefer people never do X, Y, and Z? Or let me guess, you want full reproduction scripts?
No, I don't really have any wish list like that. No.
Okay. Well, Yo, Mark. Okay. Then I just wanted to get that out there. I still think there's some low-hanging fruit bits. Part of it's just an education angle,
Yeah.
and having the ticketing system say, "Hey, by the way, here's even if it's the whole parallel conversation, you know, what does good advice look like?" But there are definitely some do's and don'ts, and um, the hypothetical perfect report from some project. But I don't want to dig into that. But I do see opportunities for FreeBSD's handling and other BSDs. Why not? So yeah. And actually, any lessons from OpenBSD short of or NetBSD or Lumos, short of here's a send PR, send bug within base, which is one thing to consider. Uh, well, I'm happy to continue on autopilot doing my thing. It's just with the end of the year coming, if collectively we can say, hey, we knocked out a few dozen superfluous, distracting tickets. Well, that's a good thing. Go ahead.
I would have something more jail specific to add while
Yes,
Jamie is
please.
here.
Yes, please.
So I started I've sent an unfinished review of adding support to the jail command to execute the jail configuration if it's marked as executable in the file system, and then pass the output as if it was the file content. The patch, as I said, works. I played around with it and found it very useful because it allowed me to write short little shell scripts to automate things like pick a things like picking a device file system rule set number for the jail dynamically, which normally you can't really do. And now I can just say pick the next three or pick a static jail ID above 1 million and store it somewhere in VARDB so that that jail name always gets the same jail ID, or assign a UUID on first launch to that jail name and the jail gets to keep it.
Jan, has that hit review or is that still mailing list territory?
It has hit review. The code works. What's really missing is the documentation of why you would do such a thing.
Well, if Jamie needs
The
convincing, I
justification why
suspect
that's a good
documentation is
idea.
important. Jamie, have you looked at
Because
his code lately,
I
or you're
I have
waiting
looked
and
at it.
seeing?
Yeah, it is still just on the convincing part. I don't remember who, there's one other person who has chimed in on
That
that and
happens, I
said,
think,
yeah, and it's like,
with
yeah, why
style
do we need this?
recommendations, which I implemented, I think. And the other one is, which is, in my opinion, done but filed in the wrong place because it's in the bug tracker, not under a review. I implemented support in the jail command and attached the patch to the Bugzilla bug report to implement the ability to only dump the jail configuration for a specific list of jails with jail-e. So because right now jail-e dumps all the configuration and ignores the remaining argument list. And I made it so that if the argument list is non-empty after passing the get_opt line, it treats that as a list of jail names instead of ignoring that, and only dumps the configuration for those jails.
Yes.
And for that one, I even implemented them. I even patched the man page so that it has documentation.
One thing I'd like to see on that one, I don't think I've mentioned it there. I was looking at it a bit. Was would it be possible to put the jail's wildcard system on there so you could specify it like by wildcard?
A wildcard with globbing or
Yeah, yeah. In the jail, in the same way that it's used in the conf file itself, you know, it's like I want to look at jail's foo.star.
So the FreeBSD glob from libc supports um, supports implementing your own fake file system enumeration, so that I could pretend that jails are directories. And then you could expand the glob against that.
Okay. Yeah.
That
I
would
thought that might be handy. It's not necessary by any means, but I thought it might be handy.
yeah, then you would have all the usual globbing things which would work, but done it for my libucl work so that I can match key value pairs by glob inside the UCL object tree. And yeah, but sure, just write me a comment to that regard in the PR, and I will take a look at it. How much code that is. It's probably more code to do than all of the patch together, but
Yeah.
it's
Well, then
definitely
let's
possible.
probably save it for a future thing if anybody says they actually want it.
It would be one thing to just have a kind of one. It would probably be easier if you just want basically by basically saying I want something like child jail support, so that you can say something, but full globbing requires implementing all the callbacks.
Yeah.
And it is a bit of a cumbersome API, unless it just matches neatly what you have. And the other thing I would, if I'm looking at it again, like to see is the ability to also filter which keys to export, and maybe add something like libxo support, so that if you can actually save it as JSON, because the format right now is not even valid jail.conf, I think, for multi-value things. And with regard to that, one thing which has come up repeatedly in my attempts to push the jail command and its parser past its limits is that it's really annoying that you can't expand a multi-value parameter or a variable into a string, because that would make a lot of things much easier if you could just expand a multi-valued parameter. Things like the dependencies, or the different interfaces, for example, for VNet-enabled jails. Maybe I want to have that in a level. And yeah, in my opinion, the least bad of the easy options is to just join the values with new lines as kind of the default top level separator for things, to make it, even if they're multi-lined, you just merge them into a flattened representation. Because oftentimes you don't care about preserving the perfect white space formatting, you just care about not mangling the non-white space content. And even if there's something like indentation, if you have something like YAML in there, as long as each value is its own top-level YAML thingy, it would still work by just joining the new lines. Anything more flexible would either requires implementing kind of like an output field separator, magic variable, which would change the joining string or something. Or to extend the parser syntax with the ability to specify it on dereference, but that would be a syntax change, which, yeah, would need a lot more code than just instead of red bails out right now, just at that time expand it into a single string with a mem stream, append to it, close the mem stream, take the string.
Titter, take it to the review.
Mm-hmm.
Titter, Tittr, take it to the review. Share your comments there. Maybe that's a new t-shirt. Jamie, do you remember this air quotes recent discussion from 2016 about the behavior of the loopback zero device in jails? They call you out saying, hey, we discussed it. But that was the first and last comment on the issue.
Oh, let's see.
It was just like yesterday. Just like yesterday.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
indeed.
sure. We all remember these things. I dropped in chat if you
If
want
I
to take a peek,
remember,
great. But
No, was this one where every jail should have its own virtual loopback interface instead of lumping on the regular LO0, or is this?
let's see.
Um,
And I wouldn't be surprised if there are a half dozen loopback related overlapping Venn diagram ready reports
yeah.
on loopback interfaces in jails. Let's see. Um, and they cited the RFC to their credit. That's cool. Anyhow, that one came up. If we can knock out some of those
so
more than 5-year-old tickets, great. If not, such is life. Yes, Jan.
I wasn't involved at the time, but so what this PR 210049
Yes.
brings up is that the loopback IP address has a special meaning to the jail subsystem. So if you try to talk to the loopback IP address from inside a legacy non-VNet jail, what happens is that it gets mapped to the first IP address of that address family on the jail. So, for example, if you try to bind to the loopback and you have a single IPv4 address in your jail type with alias networking, what really happens is that the kernel treats this as a bind to the jail's IPv4 address. And the same for IPv6, excluding loopback link local addresses, I think. So it then means that if some software assumes that it's safe enough to bind to loopback, if you do that with alias networking on a server with public IP space on it, even if it's IPv6, it means that the service is suddenly on the internet when it was supposed to bind to the loopback. The reason why this made sense is, yes, it's a gotcha. It should be implemented. It should be better documented. But the idea behind that is that you don't have a real loopback and a lot of stuff. It makes it possible to configure services to bind to that IP address and then not depend on the actual runtime IP address. So you just bind to loopback and it works. But it may work when you don't want it to work. And unless you have a loopback for the jail that, yeah, you can't easily fix that, I think you can neuter the danger by giving each jail a unique loopback IP address. It doesn't have to be the primary loopback interface. You can create a LO1 and then give it that IP address as its first alias. And that should work, but it may cause issues with source address selection depending on what your network setup is.
Okay.
And then, yeah,
Okay.
it works. VNet jails are not affected by that. They have their own loopback interface with canonical loopback IP addresses on that.
Got it. And for those keeping score, the BSDCan call for participation should be out within 24 hours, along with a new website. Little birdie told me that. And prospectus for those who want to talk to their employers and wealthy uncles and aunts and philanthropists about sponsoring that event. My fiduciary duty to say something along those lines. Anything else, or shall we call it good?
Just as you're closing up, there's
Yes,
a
sir.
phone number calling in.
For you? Perfect. Oh, there's
No,
a
into
number
the
calling into
call.
the call. Welcome,
So someone
702
may be
something,
an
something,
hour
something.
off in their time zone.
No worries. Well, let's give him a moment. You're unmuted. Next caller, you're on the show. What you got?
No, it's Craytonian. I just needed to join from the phone. My audio wasn't working.
Understood. Do you have any topics that we missed?
One thing that I really cared about, I guess, is .NET development inside of a jail, and I've tried to do it, and for some reason it doesn't work. I have it running on my like FreeBSD base system, but for some reason it doesn't work on. It doesn't work inside a jail.
What do you
Do you have
see?
any
What's
report
it?
on that?
Yeah, what's the
Any bug
behavior that
report,
doesn't look right?
any documentation of the issue, error messages and the like?
Yeah, give me a moment. Let me start the jail. I'll be right back.
No worries. Things just got interesting.
I do have one comment regarding the
Yes, please. Yes.
metadata.
Yes.
On Illumin's side, the SmartOS site has a service called mdata, which it sends key value pairs to the zones, and the zones can communicate to the couple zones. So maybe it's worth it. Take a look at that to check the previous state of the art. And also there is, for example, at zone definition are XML files. They have tags, for example, that only have meaning for the users of the zones. For example, on SmartOS, we have the billing ID tag that is used for billing.
Oh, interesting. So, like counting what a given user has consumed so you can send them a bill?
Yeah, sort of like that, I think. But
Do you have
with
a
all
link for that
tag.
or the names that we can search for?
Yeah,
Like
the
a
first
manual
is
page would be great.
mdata.
Okay. Mdata
just
like I've
SmartOS.
got?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Just for the SmartOS, not Omnios.
Oh, okay. Got it. OS plus billing hook. So cool. And I can imagine some people wanting that. I've certainly heard that come up with ZFS, and let's keep track of things when say if you're a jail or VM host provider and people are using space and you need to send them a bill, well, the more the OS can provide, be it through JSON or otherwise, the better. Interesting.
A quick
I
Google
think we
search
might
brought
have
up.
to do this another time because my jail is not starting and I have to troubleshoot that.
Okay, well,
I apologize.
no worries
It
at
did
all.
work.
Yeah.
But the error that I get so far is jail. Here, I'll post it here. I have to post it in the chat. Is there anything in the chat where I can do to symbolize its code, like the 3 ticks?
I generally clean that up after the fact. I just throw a font on it. So throw it in there. I'll work with it.
Okay. But these are basic errors that I don't think I need help with, but the .NET error I'll need help with, because what it says is it's like the CLR is not found.
Oh.
Right.
And what's a CLR, by the way? Do you know what that refers to?
That's the .NET runtime?
No. This is like, I can't even start my jail, right? Like it's not starting. Like if you look at the do as start service, because I'm not.
That's the get PW num is telling it. It's quite likely that your jail, if you look at your mount points, you're probably either missing a mount point or /etc is missing inside the jail.
Yeah, maybe it's easier just to start with a jail manager and work your way up with your development on.
Not /dev, but /etc. because it's trying to map a user or group name to a user or group ID and fails, and to do the mapping, not fails to find a mapping. So it probably means that your /etc is incomplete, and you or you have to regenerate. No, you don't. No, you don't have to have the database
All right,
falsified.
can you guys give me like 5 minutes to restart my computer and
Oh,
log back into Zoom?
sure.
Sure. And if
All right, I'll
anyone
be
wants
right
to
back.
drop off, go for it. No worries. And speaking of the future, the next meeting would fall, I believe, on December 24th. That's probably going to be a challenge for quite a few people. Happens to be my wife's name's day, of course. I do not close these or have waiting rooms, so if you want to drop in and talk informally, please do. I never want to discourage such activities. Thank you very much. Let's see. And it looks like he's using a a jail.conf rather than, yeah, conf.d. Cool. Good. Let's see. I'll put it here because pro tip, you get the formatting by putting it adjacent to existing text for those having to manage meetings. Does anyone else have to-do list items they want to wrap up before the end of the year, just because it's a nice pseudo, somewhat nature in, what's a good way of putting it? Nature-based time frame, deadline, whatever. You're all welcome to use your calendar of choice, but quite a few use the mainstream one. Call them New Year's resolutions, if you will. Well, in addition to bug busting, I'm working on my own NAS, which is starting with users and data rather than ending up with those. I think the entire process is reversed on most appliances. Thank you very much. You can find many of the components already on my GitHub repo, but tying it all together is something I have a pressing need to do. Thanks for all who have helped in various ways with that. And that definitely raises questions like Samba in a jail or other services in a jail. And I believe NFSD is working quite well in a jail as of the last two major releases of FreeBSD. Thank you. Was it
Last two minor, I think. It was
minors?
working in 12.
Okay. I don't think who's the jail guy. Anyhow, jail all the things. Dan L, sorry to have muted you earlier. I think you're talking to a colleague the moment I had a question about jail tickets. Cool. I hope you solved the issue you had, first things first.
Yep.
Cool.
Didn't give any company secrets away in the time either.
Well played. Do you have any broader observations on jail-related problem report, tracking, handling, you name it? What, as a maintainer of fresh ports, I'm certainly curious about the challenges of external projects that just happen to be a port, and do the tickets belong in those projects or FreeBSD? How do we educate users to focus on the FreeBSD make file parts as opposed to some upstream feature? Go ahead.
When Dave was talking about creating common keywords, I would start with a list, look at what someone already uses, and then use that. I would be inclined to use values that are very close to the actual sysctls that are in use.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I can think of. I would take the list that already exists for a given project and use that as a starting point.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I believe we came across Garrett just on one of the calls after maybe Forge here.
Is he?
And-
iocage has started up again.
Oh yeah?
The chap who
Oh, no
was
way.
running it and was told you got to stop using shell scripts or you got to stop using whatever he was using, I think has taken it over now that it's been abandoned by IX Systems. And
Let's
it's now
see.
back in the ports tray.
Which piece?
iocage.
Oh,
Okay, do we have a link to that? Let's take a quick look.
Yeah.
FreeBSD iocage. I'll race you to it while his system's rebooting.
Sure, it's
iocage, a jail manager for FreeBSD. That is its own main page. Through 2019, let's see if it links to a repo.
So when was that? 2024. That's fairly recent. So yeah, that's him.
Okay, the page, drop whatever link you have. The main sort of PR page is kind of dated, but such is life. Maybe it hasn't changed much.
FreeBSD iocage. Yeah.
Yeah.
GitHub FreeBSD iocage. Oh, I can't paste from here.
Yeah, I've got it. Unless that which is saying 3 years ago might be a tad dated. Let's see.
Oh, what is it? Releases?
Last year.
There were releases a week ago, 3 weeks ago, September, June, May.
Okay, what link do you have? Or do I have it correct here? iocage or
no, FreeBSD iocage.
Ooh, okay, cool.
I mean, there were multiple attempts to rewrite iocage. I think there was also a version which wasn't just written in Python, but was designed to be a Python module so that you could have a programmatic interface. I think it was called IOC just. And I saw a demo at the Chaos Communication Camp several years ago, I think 6 or so. And it was quite interesting to see because it meant that you could import a Python module and do jail stuff from the comfort of your Python REPL or any other Python application with running with elevated permissions. But all of that, yeah, was never finished.
2019. Okay.
Hey, I'm back, but
welcome. What you got?
Well, wait, the link, the link is the same link, right?
In what regard? The meeting?
Yeah, for all weekly calls, you use the same link?
Yes.
No, it's a different one per. You can get to them from callfortesting.org, but they are different.
It's the same per day of week.
Each week they're the same, if that helps.
Yeah.
So every week the jail's call has the same URL.
Beautiful.
And the same also secure password.
Okay.
John's
I think I
suggestion,
could.
not
All right.
mine. Yes, what you got?
It was good enough to keep spammers out so far. So.
Nuggets. Yeah, I'll have to figure this. It keeps on failing for some reason.
Echo. Yep. Okay.
Oh, echo.
Well, feel free to drop it in the doc. Feel free to, do a PR, Discord, your platform of choice. I know there's been some. Feel free to use your communications platform of choice to share this, or you can put your findings in the doc when you've got them for a future meeting. So whatever works, we're all here to help and we're curious.
So when you share your screen, do you guys, with the FreeBSD system, do you guys have to use like OBS?
Well, not on a FreeBSD system. Is anyone using this on FreeBSD?
Like Zoom?
When I was the last time, it worked in Chromium with X11. so
you go.
that Chromium could capture the screen, but it didn't work with Firefox because Firefox, for some reason, was incompatible with Zoom's web client.
Is
All right, good.
Chromium still in ports? Because it kind of came and went at one point last time I checked.
No, I'm using Chromium, but
Oh, you are? Good. Okay.
but it's not working. So what it'll do is it'll only let me share the browser screen and not another window. Like I have a
Interesting.
display, like an extended screen, and that's
Are
considered a
you-
different window.
Are you using Wayland or X11?
Wayland.
Yeah, that's probably the issue. That
Yeah.
with Wayland, it needs compositor support, and I think Chromium doesn't have, or even Chrome doesn't have Wayland screen sharing support.
Now, how difficult would it be to program that compositor support?
This part probably for you or me wouldn't even be implementing it, but getting Google to accept the contribution, unless you wanted to maintain it as part of the eternal patch set against Chromium. Or look what some Linux distributions have done, and I don't know which compositor you're using. So depending on the compositor, it may just be that your compositor needs some feature, which would be a easier
I'm using
problem
something
to
called
fix.
WL roots, I believe.
Directly or something based on it?
I use Sway. That's my Windows manager, but it's like Wayland and Sway is mine.
Is it jailed,
Yeah.
or is it off topic and we can discuss it after the
It's,
recording? Ba-dum-bum.
My bad.
No, it's all valid. It's all related. I will update the t-shirt slogan database here. Oh, we're up to 40, maybe 41 at this point, thanks to this call. That's important. Here's a link in the chat, at least, to where to find that.
I guess here's a different question for you guys about jails. So do you guys all right, so I agree with the phrase use the right tool for the job, but when I look at jails, like I think there's also a difference between like Beehive and jails, whereas using the Beehive using the Beehive command line tools versus the VMM tools is like it's just easier to use the VM tools, right? Because you don't have to do as much. So I'll agree using that. However, with jails, I don't necessarily see the need to make jails easier, you know? Like I mean, and I know I'm struggling with it right now, right?
By definition.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
a contradiction. But do you guys recommend any? Because like I think because I'm reading the book, the FreeBSD Jails book, and that specific library is no longer in support, like the iconage, the iocage. But then there's like easy jail. So do you guys have any, I guess, recommendations on which one's a person? Oh, you said it's back.
It's back. I will jump in and say things like the metadata that was discussed earlier, and the jail descriptors from Jamie, and the executable config file from Jan. These are all attempting to make the in-base tools a delight to work with. So if you check my talk series out from last year or the year before, it's all about leveraging the heck out of in-base tools because they've become very, very good. So I would love to see us either not make it difficult to allow you to use those tools or provide hooks like process supervision to allow for an ecosystem of all those bolt-on tools, because there's, as you probably observed, even mentioning EasyJail and iocage, these various projects all bump into the same issues, especially for Beehive, and then they rot away. So the one key function of these calls is to identify those underlying common challenges and address them. And we've been, I'd argue, addressing them with pretty good success. We're not there yet, but yes, we all want flawless Beehive process supervision with live migration, but hey, it's a whole lot of baby steps rather than some amazing breakthrough.
I appreciate you, Michael.
My pleasure.
And then I'd like to. So I've been asking this question. So you guys, I'm assuming. So you guys are like the FreeBSD organization, right? Like that's you, because like, and I'm saying this because
No.
I'm watching the ZFS conference, and Michael and Jan are like so far they're in every single talk that I've watched, and I'm gonna go through the FreeBSD developer con and stuff like that. But you guys, it seems that you guys are kind of pushing, like you guys are holding these conferences for people to do inputs and stuff like that. You guys are, you don't control, but you manage the development lifecycle, it seems, with FreeBSD and stuff like that. So
no, we don't.
Right. There are lots of hats that get worn. There are lots of cats that get herded, and stuff happens. So we each play some weird nonlinear role in it all, such as Dan, who just commented, who organized BSDCan for 19 years straight brilliantly. So
I love BSDCan, by the way. Wait, who did that? You said Dan?
Dan, DVL on the call here.
I think I recognize your voice there, young man.
Hey, thank you. I really like the BSDCan.
Did you make it last year or this year, rather?
I've never made it. One day I will, though. Right now I'm just watching in the background. But
again, a CFP should be opening within 12 to 24 hours with a new website. So be there or be square. Is it still the old ugly site? No, not ugly, sorry. The dated site where Adam, bless his heart, bolted on this just as a fix, which it does the job, I admit. Go ahead.
There is more coming. They've rewrote it in Markdown.
Yes, that hopefully within the next 12 to 24 hours. That's been going.
Wait. If I wanted to make a website for BSDCan, would you guys use it?
Someone beat you to it, but we definitely wanted to hear from you a solid year ago. We do have a new web person who has been a frequent attendee, but your help is definitely welcome, especially artwork, templating, and other fancy things. So
cool. All right.
Yeah, reach out to Lucas or myself or whomever. Oh, new message in chat. And I guess now that we're on desktop topics, I guess XFCE is out with a new release. Has that hit ports to anyone's knowledge yet? If only there was a website to track that. Fresh ports and search XFCE, and Mixer 23, 24, 1208 Pulse Audio plugin is fresh. I should probably look for some base component of it. Anyway, there's that. And I couldn't help but notice that package base is sure helpful in realigning your base and packages APIs. So you might have a warning like, you have a mismatch, and then after a big old update, suddenly the mismatch is gone. That is cool. That is awesome. Anyway, watch for a new XFCE update. Other kind words, Craytonian, because hey, the ratio of hostile words in open source to kind ones is not what it could be or should be.
Just changing that at all is easier than improving it.
Wait, am I supposed to say something?
It's up to you. So it's all optional. It's your call, not mine. Anyway, we are at 20 after.
Here, for supporting me. I really like this. Like, you guys are awesome. Like, this level of support is insane to me.
This is very much a hybrid inspired by quarterly dev summits, which just have a cadence that is great for the social aspects, but for following PRs and reviews, is not as efficient. So, hey, hopefully this produces some good.
By the way, I will be working on Bugzilla, the migration with, I think you got with Mark, but.
Migration? What, you're playing with Forge?
Yeah, Forge.io, yeah, for sure. I actually have it on my Kubernetes.
Oh, you do?
Node. Yeah,
really?
Yeah. So I use it myself because I don't, I'm not a crazy good developer or anything, right? And shouldn't be worried about AI taking like my code and stuff. But I don't trust GitHub. They, I wouldn't say I don't trust them, but I just don't like them, I shouldn't say that publicly. But Yeah, I just don't agree with everything that GitHub does. So I try not to use it. It's hard though.
I hear you. And yeah, and the whole Goog factor, I think it was security researcher. It's like, well, wait, I'm not using Google, but everyone else is, such that my email goes through it either way. So kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. Same with GitHub. However, I sure wish they would take over SourceForge. Please, just come on. A project's harming itself to still be on SourceForge, in my biased opinion. Go ahead, Jan.
There's a difference. One thing, okay, you can't prevent public mailing lists or something like that from going through Google, Microsoft, and the other handful of big mail hosters. But that's for public information, not an issue. We don't have to worry about Google suddenly deciding to properly index all the FreeBSD mailing lists, merge them with all the bug reports, and provide a great unified search interface. I wouldn't mind if they did, but I don't think we have to worry about that either way. So joking aside, the bigger issue if you host something on GitHub is that you require everyone to have an active GitHub account, which some contributors may just be not able to do. And not because they've been permabanned or whatever for their personal behavior, but just because they are unable to obtain a citizenship which is not banned. And yeah. So
yeah, but
Jan,
its
we'll have to
barrier
talk
of entry
more
is
about
lower
that.
than, say, FreeBSD. Go ahead.
Later, we could talk a lot more about that because I don't think you have to have a GitHub account to contribute to FreeBSD.
Not to FreeBSD, but if you have a product which is purely hosted on GitHub, which has actually been argued for inside the FreeBSD product, that someone said we should just accept reality and move over to have the official repository be on GitHub and
that's a different
official issue tracker and so on. This has been argued because all the cool kids are doing it or whatever. But yeah, what happens when, I don't know, we get good patches from Cuba? Or displaced persons or whatever? Do we really want them to be unable to even submit a pull request or open an issue, comment on an issue without
Okay.
You don't need an account to just check out or read the code, but even search requires to be logged in if you want. So yeah.
Yeah, I have more questions about that later, but where can I get all the production user hackathon, like the where can I get all are all these backlogged? The notes?
Yes, they are, for better or for worse. So I did clean them up not too long ago, and step one, callfortesting.org links the 3 main documents. The recordings are on @callfortesting. I sure don't use the IRC much, but you are welcome to. I did split up previous calls into quarters, which seems manageable because these were becoming, it's at 68 pages. They were at like 300 pages, which I'm amazed Google Docs can handle. I'd love to be on, say, Collabora or similar, but that's not going to happen today. Related, the other calls. So it's a doc per call. This is a format I have been using and following, and I try to keep it consistent. It is by no means a perfect format. Thank you very much. Let's see. Do we have any subscribers? Last check, it was like 300, which in YouTube terms is statistically nothing. 336, 218 videos. We nearly have a video per subscriber. Hey. Yeah. But if you have a few months to blow, here is hours upon hours of content for your viewing pleasure.
I do have months to blow.
I'm jealous.
Would you say that if a person were to watch those videos, there's like a lot of things that they can learn from those?
Yes, but I do, as you've noticed, try to keep pretty accurate minutes, such that if you do a search for, I don't know, IPv6, you can quickly find things. So a combination of the two is great, and a lesson from the OpenZFS event is like, hey, subtitles are important. So some were handled for a non-native English speaker prior to the event. And then I've been working with people to clean up the subtitles because our friends at YouTube don't think to capitalize the very first letter of the first word of a video. So you'd think they'd do that bare minimum, but the punctuation is pretty much lost. And so I, for one, will not be going through all the transcripts of the YouTube recordings. However, getting things like .NET and BSDCan with the capitalization and OpenZFS all correct is helpful, especially with these technical terms like forgejo. I'd be curious how YouTube interprets forgejo. Probably forgejo. Yeah.
I'm listening.
He's listening.
If you're looking to learn from the recordings, I think the density is oftentimes quite low, and at times the opposite is true, and you have a very condensed discussion you are unable to follow without context, but the minutes are good kind of indexed, so you could search for terms with reasonable spellings, because this is just real-time notes oftentimes. So expect a few typos here and there, and try different acronyms and so on. But once you've identified an episode which contains the topic you're interested in, just scroll through it and hope you find something useful. Otherwise, you're going to lose a lot of time.
I appreciate you.
I did a search on VNet, and there are
because
18
the
responses.
notes should at least tell you which topics are discussed in a recorded video. And I think the notes Michael keeps diligently are a lot easier to search than YouTube subtitles.
I'm looking at Michael's document in mine, the one that I got that says production user hackathon. It's different. Like Michael's, I think it says 68 pages or something like that. Mine says, the one that I was on says 20.
Oh, interesting. So the hackathon thing was when we had a dedicated event. What is post-libhdc, by the way? Oh, hello. Maybe it helps. Craytonian, is that something to look at? You put in chat. I'll drop it on another window here.
No, that's the tutorial I did like years ago using FreeBSD and jails.
Home Datacenter. Oh, hello. Cool.
I'm looking at it.
And to answer
that's cool. I've thought about doing it.
I'm not dodging your question. I swear. I just saw it come across the chat while I was looking for the hackathon thing. The hackathon thing was a one-time document for a genuine hackathon over Discord, which was extremely popular. It's one of our most watched videos. Go figure. But I thought, gee, we can't lose track of all these god-awful T-shirt ideas. So, jails for a home data center. Is this a video, or why is this so dark? But
no, they changed the theme to dark.
At the top right, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
Ooh, dark. Oh yeah. Okay.
So, is it Nirac? Is that how you pronounce it?
No, it just is. My name is just Carlos. I changed the
Carlos. Okay.
Yeah, changed the name of my name because
Carlos,
I use that handle on GitHub.
Maybe. Thank you. Yeah. So I use Kubernetes. So I have like 2 Raspberry Pis and a server. So I would actually do this. The only thing is like running like things that need Linux compatibility libraries or a different OS. There is a thing that I've heard where you can put Beehive inside of a jail, and I have to look more into that. But this is something I'm very like. One thing is like a free BSD or a Unix version of Proxmox that uses like lightweight, heavyweight jails instead of like containers and Beehive. There's a project that kind of does it, but you know, it's I like this idea of a data center. Like a
yeah, running Beehive inside jails, I feel it back, like I think a year ago, 2 years ago, maybe. That was the last bug I did on FreeBSD, because we have a friend that did that feature on FreeBSD, but it wasn't available. On SmartOS, it was available since the start. They have like a patent technology called double hold security, where you have the Beehive process inside the zone. So if you escape the zone, you just land in a zone that nothing inside. So that feature wanted from my friend, and we have like a couple of months, a week discussion with the developers, and there was some resistance to add that feature because they didn't see the value of adding that. And after a week ago, I think we have escape with the security CVE. So that thing maybe put some pressure on the foundation to take a look at that. I don't have the bug report for ID, but if you search for Beehive inside jails in the Bugzilla, you will find it.
So the latest news there is from EuroBSDCan, where Chris from these calls has updated and shared his scripts to create his jailed Beehive deployments from his talk. So take a peek.
For anyone new to the topic, it's quite important to keep a clean mental model of what each tool does. So jails and Beehive solve a completely different problem, even if it doesn't look like it. Because Beehive is a virtual machine monitor at the end of the day. So it runs a guest operating system, including a guest kernel, as if it was, it is a virtual machine. So as if it is yet another server, just that it only takes up your time, not your space.
Oh, I like that.
So, and jails are a way to have only a FreeBSD userland. Okay, technically, potentially a Linux one as well. But basically most of the time a FreeBSD userland, as in a root directory containing all the files, but running on the same kernel as the host. Inside of that jail, you can then run Beehive, the virtual machine host. Yeah. So they solve completely different technical problems, even if the user requirement motivating you to pick either one can be the same. Like, I have a crappy application I have to run. I want to run it on FreeBSD. I want to isolate it from everything else to the degree necessary. And yeah, you can do that with jails and do it with less overhead, or you can do it more completely with a virtual machine, but then you have all the overhead and inefficiency of running yet another kernel, emulating devices instead of just implementing the system call in the way it needs to be implemented.
Jan, did you say VMs take up your time, not your space?
Unlike physical servers, yes.
Yeah, love it. Okay, there's
they take just enough, just as much time, just not as much space, or whatever. Find a pithy way of phrasing that if you want a t-shirt idea.
Love it, love it.
Yeah. So with jails, you can use them almost like a virtual machine. If all the system interfaces are completely jail aware, or you don't need them, then you can run it and treat a jail like a kind of lower overhead virtual machine, or you can go further and treat them as, cattle, not pets, so that You remove the ability to become your unique special snowflake environment by completely automating everything around the jail and using things like read-only mount points to prevent them from even having the chance to diverge from your automation. So that unlike a normal Unix operating system, which if given half a chance will take on a life of its own, you can systematically prevent it from even having the chance of diverging. Like everything is a read-only mount point, except for /etc and user local etc and var run, and those are temp FSs and destroyed and recreated on RV start and stop or something like that. So that, and maybe the only place is somewhere under VARDB, my application. That's the one place you actually keep a normal file system with read-write semantics persistent across restarts. And most applications will be pretty happy with that and require minimal, if any, customization to run in such an environment.
One question, I remember that Zork doesn't run inside a jail, or today it does? X11 runs inside a jail, the Zork server?
You can run Xorg inside a jail, but the question is, does it make sense? Because you can either run an unaccelerated headless Xorg server, or you can definitely, and that does make sense, run X11 clients, like your actual graphical applications inside a jail, and then you could potentially run something like I don't know, what would you use, XVNC or something, or X3RDP to run an RDP server so that your Windows and Mac users can easily connect with an RDP client to have a full-featured remote desktop environment. But what is a bit tricky and may not be worth the issue, because you poke a big hole into the security boundary, which probably motivates you to create it, is to actually pass through the physical GPU and make it accessible from inside a jail. This can work or can be completely impossible depending on the driver. The most common issue is that some drivers, at least when I looked at it ages ago, wanted to use dev-mem or dev-kmem, which if you give that to the jail, it's no longer a security boundary, because if you give it a device to write to physical memory or kernel memory, it can do anything to the system if it's compromised from inside the jail. But even if it only gets full control over the GPU device, in my opinion, the quality in design and implementation of GPU hardware, their architectures, their driver stacks, and the like, it's just not at the point of where I would consider them a good security boundary, because I've seen both the AMD and the NVIDIA driver present uninitialized textures with other applications snapshots in it and so on. So there are corner cases where you are able to sniff some other processes' memory, and the shader compilers are not designed in such a way that malicious input will not get you full code execution on the GPU outside of the sandbox. And once you have full code execution on the GPU, you can have a DMA all across physical memory normally. Yes, with IOMMUs and virtual functions on a workstation or server GPU where this feature is not disabled, it may be a bit better, but it's still even if you have a layered defense, it's a giant attack surface, a modern GPU. So hardware accelerated graphics is problematic. if you need it, it may still be worth it for the management and just for the process, so that you have an easier time automating things, provisioning things. If you have to, for example, provide a training environment or something like that, where you're doing it so that during normal usage, it's easier to do, but you don't expect a tight security boundary. It's kind of okay-ish if your training environment could be escaped from into whatever contains it, and the point of enforcement should be somewhere else if you really need the security boundary. So yeah, it's an uncommon thing to do, but it's possible. Did that answer any of your question? Did it at least answer more than it created?
Yeah, thank you very much for your explanation.
One quick point I put in chat is that I believe PCBSD worked to institutionalize jail browsers and other things for safety long ago.
Mm-hmm.
And if we keep babbling for 15 to 20 more minutes, the new BSDCan site should be up, 3 p.m. Eastern. So yeah, it's your call. It's your call.
Yeah, let's keep on.
Keep babbling.
Keep
Okay. Other topics, other New Year's resolutions from a code perspective, or what would you do with an Intel Quick Assist card that wasn't much money and just arrived and looks pretty much new?
Ray, you actually ordered a Quick Assist on a PCI card?
Yeah, to enable and disable for ZFSE things, inspired by Eva, who has not been attending because she has an amazing new job.
So you're worrying about or looking into the deflate acceleration or checksum, or what?
The ZFS acceleration for be it checksums or compression, etc. Anyway.
I mean, that PCIe root complex would be hard pressed to keep up with something like Fletcher 4, just your internal I/O bandwidth. Okay, if you want to use SHA-256 for, and you don't have a CPU with hardware SHA-256 instructions, that card may actually help you or potentially allow you to use both the CPU and the dedicated checksum engine at the same time. Which may mean that, yes, it's the pure checksumming throughput of the chipset is probably lower than the CPU throughput, but at least you have both of them, so the CPU can do something else, maybe encryption.
Yep.
But yeah.
See a DVL.
So if you have checksum set to 256 for dedupe or something, okay. But other than that, I don't think it's so interesting. But the deflate compression support could be interesting. But it's also one of the most troublesome ones because ZFS requires the compression to be deterministic, as in the same input always has to compress to the same output. And if you rip out or disable the compression, suddenly things will break until you have the same matching compression engine again. So that's a really ugly footgang because it checksums both the compressed and the decompressed data.
Ooh, could you hypothetically have a data set with, say, I don't know, SHA-256 that's not suddenly readable on another system that doesn't? I assume there's software decompression.
The SHA engine is fine.
SHA's fine, but what
the hash function is either correct or not. There are no valid different implementations of hash functions. It's the compression, which there are multiple different ways you could implement the compression algorithm, which would all find slightly different compressed representations, which are all equally valid. from does it decompress to the same data, but a software implementation may spend a bit more effort and do things which would be hard to do in hardware. So a hardware one may be faster, but have a slightly worse compression ratio and definitely a different checksum.
Mm-hmm.
Which would mean that ZFS will read the data and find out, no, this is a corrupted pool because the data checksum is wrong on the compressed data, decompressed, depending. Yeah. So there are some issues here with the, and there are open issues for that. And I think the state right now is that because of that, you cannot safely enable hardware compression engines because, yeah, they would have to be trust you to always produce the same compression result for any input as the software implementations. And it would basically be a dedicated device putting the current ZFS deflate or other compression algorithms into hardware. I mean, you could do it with an FPGA card, for example, but that would be quite expensive for what it gets you. I could imagine some storage vendor may be interested in doing something like that, but I don't see how you and I are going to profit of that.
Oh, wait, what?
So if I remember correctly, there are no open foot guns accessible to users. It's just that, yeah, if you change that knob over in the code, it would definitely destroy people's pools. Because potentially you could write with different compression implementations to it, and it would only lock you out of all the blocks you've already written, basically, which are compressed. So yeah, you could have a data set with a pool with different data sets with different compression engines written to, and suddenly you find out that this data set is only readable on this host and this on the other. So yeah, or you may end up in a state where neither can read it, which is why here be dragons applies to that situation.
Cool.
So it's not as easy as we have driver support for some compression engine to make use of it in ZFS.
And are there clearly algorithms without software fallback?
I don't think so, but you don't know the exact compression algorithm. You don't have a software implementation of the hardware one.
Good point. Yeah.
So it's the same algorithm as far as decompression goes, but it would have to be a unique compression algorithm to make it kind of safe-ish. So you would have to take all the engines you support for each one with a different compression behavior. You would have to have a new compression algorithm setting, I think, and that would be really, and you could then know that the software decompression works, but you would have to trust that you have a perfect software model of that piece of hardware when it comes to writing to it. If you import the pool in a pure read-only manner, okay, but that gets you back to the bad old state of, sorry, my RAID volume is tied to this particular card. And I don't know if any of you have ever encountered that particular corner case, like, yeah, I have a redundant disk array, but I have just one of those RAID cards, and delivery time for a replacement, even if it's still available, may be weeks. So all of the data is trapped inside of effectively or behind effectively that hardware RAID card.
Well,
and the compression card would be similar.
Even identical cards can be incompatible because
RAID. Yes,
so,
different firmware versions
part.
or undocumented recovery procedures to import a foreign pool or whatever.
Yep. So Craytonian has a question about
or
removing a jail. Do you mean from memory or from disk? Go ahead.
Like, oh yeah, we kind of keep some kind of metadata in the non-volatile memory on the RAID controller, and we have to do a full scan of the array, and that takes like several days. And it was back when the ratio of capacity to bandwidth was far more generous. Sorry, rant over.
Rant over. Okay, Craytonian, you had questions. Igor, I bet you've got some cool things to share. And I'm trying to find 2004 BSDCan presentations, but it's blank. Hope we didn't screw that up.
Craytonian, what do you mean by remove a jail?
Drop it out of memory or drop it off your disk or both?
Or just stop a jail after you've modified the configuration in an incompatible way.
Exactly. Yeah. So, well, so I think I figured out what happened. One, it was looking, I think I'm trying to figure out. So what I'm going to do to get my jail to work is I want to remove it and then reinstall it. But the reason it didn't work at first is because I'm missing my bin sh directory inside my jail, right? So I'm missing certain important directories. So what I was trying to do is I was trying to remove the whole directory and then start over. But when I do it, I get errors like var empty operation not permitted, sbin init operation not permitted when trying to remove it, right?
So which jail manager are you using?
I'm using
you're using one.
I'm using like jails 8, I believe it's called.
Just the jail 8, so the base system command. No external jail manager at all.
If I can, I try to not do
that's great.
tools, unfortunately.
Which makes it a lot simpler to do what needs doing. So you can, is the jail running? If you run jls dash whatever, D if you want to see if it's attempting to remove it, or just jls without any arguments if you just want to see all the running jails.
Yeah, so I get nothing.
So jls doesn't produce.
No, it just says JID, IP address, host name, path. But the jail, I wish I could place. Oh, for some reason,
what happens when you run jail-v for verbose and -c for create, and then the name of your jail?
Okay. Jail-v for verbose. And then -c for create.
And then the name of the jail if you have multiple jails configured.
Okay, but this, by the way, if just the base system files for this jail is still on like this here. Yeah, it's not, I think it's not letting me paste this specific error because it's too many, I'm trying to paste too many characters.
But yeah, the chat has a limit. You have to use some external service and paste the link. The chat has 1,000 characters per message limit in this call.
All right, I posted the Google Doc of my errors that I get.
Okay, keep in mind, we're still recording. Rock and roll. Link.
That's okay. That error message means several things. First of all, you're not allowed to delete a directory if it's a mount point. And another thing is you're not allowed to delete a file or directory or any other kind of file-like thing if there's a system immutable flag set on the path. So, So what you have to do is on the root directory of your jail, run this command. Let me just, what can't I?
Mhm.
By
By the way, I also looked for here. Do you see the first couple of lines where I tried to look for any mount points and it didn't give me anything?
No, I only see just modify the document.
Yeah. All right, modifying now. It's modified. And I put a space in between so it's separate.
So something like this would remove all of the flags.
Okay, I'm going to run that.
The system immutable flag is a flag to prevent you from performing the worst kinds of self-owns by deleting like libc, the runtime linker, and a very select few other files, so that you would be unable to run any non-static executable to recover. And yeah.
All right, I'm going inside the
these
Zoom
days
chat.
more of an annoyance because we have things like ZFS boot environments to recover. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and the last one is probably that this is a mount point, right?
All right, so if I wanted to figure out if it's a mount point, I can list all things that are mounted, right? Interesting. So it's not mounted. However, the zroot file, the zroot data set is mounted. So here, I'm going to
don't destroy your data set.
You said don't?
Don't destroy. That's taking it a bit too far. That shouldn't be necessary.
Yeah. Like I have this. When I did the mount command, it gave me this. I'll share everything with you if you want to. Just let me know.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's the output from mount. Okay.
Oh, you said or mount p. Let me do mount p.
Yeah, mount -p prints it as a fs tab, but that's just So if you do a find on that mount point, is it empty? Oh, we've been talking long enough. The new page is up.
Yep. Boom. There's a new BSDCan
and it
.org
looks
page.
like it was designed a decade later than the last.
A decade later, yeah.
So we're now a decade
if you
behind.
Want,
I don't know
I
why
can still try and create.
Yeah, I like the simple, minimal look. Don't get me wrong, but the other one was with the backgrounds and the low resolution imagery.
On a private browsing page, I get the correct site. On anything cached, I guess I get a weird mix of the past and the present.
So it's
anyway,
probably, cache invalidation is hard.
Right. So yay, we did it. Congratulations, the site's up. Any other questions, Critonian, about debugging that? Do you two want to continue? Do you think you're close?
I most certainly want to continue.
Okay, well, how about we, boom, exactly on the hour. Let's call the official call, and I welcome you to continue on the channel. How about that? Work for you?
You have the handle of the button?
I can do that. So
like and subscribe.
Great. Thank you, everyone. Happy holidays. If you want to drop in just informally next week, go for it. Have a great one. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.